All right, what's up, guys? It's been a minute. I've had some really big life changes, so I've had to take a break from recording. All right, so first things first, let's bring in the reference image. And you can find this image on my website. Just go to drugfreedave.com and then scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see reference images. So let's tap this little picture, reference image. So we'll tap that and we'll tap on whatever image is there, import. And then depending on what device you're on, you just want to go to where your reference image is. So I'll go to Photos because on my iPad, mine is in Photos. And we're just going to do this little guy, add. We can hit this little X here. And now you'll see that the image is here, but if you need to adjust it, just hit Transform. And then you can take two fingers and you can adjust it as you need. So I'm going to place it here and then just tap with one finger to go back to sculpting mode. So here's a few things that I like to do before I start my projects. So firstly, you can see that we have the grid here. If I put it off axis and then I hit front, this is a snap cube, by the way. You can sort of kind of control things. But if I hit front, you see this grid, green line, red line. So let's tap this little video. Make sure you're in orthographic. Let's add a floor and we're going to line it right up to this red line. So let's go to our scene menu here. We'll hit add and let's do a box. So we'll just take this green line, this green dot, excuse me, and we'll just bring it down to that red line. And we can bring this up and that'll be our floor. Really easy, really simple. So we make a box there. Let's hit validate. And you see that it looks really weird. That's because of smooth shading. Let's turn smooth shading off. So let's go to this little sphere here, smooth shading off. So we've only turned it off for this box because it's the floor. It doesn't, we don't really need it to be smooth. We don't need the computer we don't need Nomad Sculpt trying to make it smooth. It's just a box. Okay, so let's hit front. We have our floor. Now that it's lined up to this red line, we don't need the grid anymore. So let's just go down here and turn the grid off. I think the grid is annoying, so now we don't have to worry about the grid anymore because we have our floor plane. Okay, so let's take this sphere. Let's go back to our scene. This is where all the things that you put in your scene are going to go right here. So this sphere is 98.3K. That's really big. That's pretty huge. The box is 2,708. So that's quite a difference. Let's delete this sphere. Let's add a new sphere. Okay, this sphere is only 6,146. So again, that's much smaller, easier for us to work with. We don't need something really, really huge just yet. So let's tap Gizmo. These are our tools here. So we'll tap Gizmo. Gizmo is like the controller that helps you control whatever your 3D object is. And by the way, there's lots of different names for the 3D object. Like this 3D sphere is also a 3D object. It's also a 3D mesh. So there's lots of different names. So don't let that confuse you. That's why 3D can get so confusing. There's so many different names for things and there's so many different ways to do every single thing. So, just take a breather when it starts to get overwhelming. Okay, so now we just have a box and we have a sphere over top. Let's rename these. So we'll go back to the scene. Okay. Autosave, I don't really trust, but we can name our project. And it's going to keep popping up. It's driving me through the wall, through the roof. So autosave, I'm just going to name this, I'm going to name it Naki. I don't even know why. I don't know what that means, but I guess that's going to be this monster's name. I don't know. So once we named it, if you go to this little folder here, you can see that it's named. And you want to save, you want to manually save multiple times because Nomad Sculpt will crash and you will be really annoyed. So you would just go to this little folder and hit save, save Naki, yes, and then it saves. Another thing I like to do is change from white. I like it to kind of be like clay, I don't want it to be white. So let's use a matte cap. So let's tap on this little sun icon and change from lit PBR to matte cap. You can tap here and you can use all these different ones, which are kind of random colors, but I'm just going to go with this one. And it's okay if your background is a different color. You can adjust all of that here. You could tap here and adjust the colors and everything. So don't worry if, you can adjust all of these things. So don't worry if mine looks a little bit different than yours. Okay, let's save. It's good to get in the habit of saving. Okay, so also, if you notice, this sphere has this validate thing. So when you bring in a new object, there's some things that you can do before you start sculpting with it. We don't have to worry about that right now. So just remember that if you bring something in, you're probably going to have to validate it. And that's when all your tools come up so you can use them. Okay. All right, so let's finally get started. So one of the main things about Nomad Sculpt is, and sculpting in general, is you don't have to sculpt something out of like a block. Because when I first thought about 3D sculpting, I thought about, okay, I have to like mold something into what I want, or I have to chisel something, almost like you're making, like a bust out of like granite or something like that. It's not really like that. Of course, you can do that if you want to, but think of 3D sculpting as taking shapes, organizing them all together, adjusting them as needed, merging them together, and smoothing them out to get whatever shape you want. So when I look at a character like this, I'm thinking of all the shapes and the most efficient way to get those shapes and to get everything together so it looks like this. So when you're using shapes, it's going to look a lot cleaner than if you're trying to mold something into something else. You know what I mean? So like if you take a thing of clay and you're trying to mold it into a ball, you can probably do it pretty good, pretty well. But if you just take a clay ball, like if you just say, like those watermelon scoops and it's like a perfect ball, it's going to look nicer. I don't know if that helps, but maybe it'll make sense. Okay, so we have a sphere. So let's move the sphere up, and let's make this the head. The head is spherical. Let's make that the sphere. So we'll go to our scene. This is our sphere. Let's tap the 3 dots, name, and let's just change the name of it. So this will be head. Okay, this will be floor. So we'll tap on the 3 dots, name, floor, or FLR if you're fancy. Okay, so now I'm just thinking of the space between the floor and the body. So maybe this head is a little bit taller. So I just tap on it and then use the gizmo to move it where I want. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so the body looks like, let's go to our scene. Let's go to add. So these primitives are our shapes that we can use for our little character here. So I think I want to do a box. So right now I'm thinking of this shape, and there's lots of different shapes I can make into a sort of shape like this, but what seems like it makes the most sense to me is using a box and making the corners kind of rounded and just making it a rectangle. So that's my way of thinking when I look at this shape. So I'm on my gizmo, I'm going to move it up. And notice I haven't hit validate yet. We're going to get into that. So first, let's take this large orange ring and let's make it smaller. So we just take the orange ring, and this changes the scale. Okay, so let's just make it like this. Now you also have these little spheres, so that stretches. So right now we're looking at the front. If we look at the side, you can see that it'll stretch. So if we're looking at the left side, that we'll just do something like this maybe. I think looks all right. We'll go back to the front, and I'll just maybe squeeze it like that. That feels right. So remember I said I wanted to round out the edges. Sorry, my air conditioner, you can probably hear it. So I had one of those. I have one of those Medea U-shaped ones. So recently, I had the dude had to come and like drill a hole in it. Super annoying. Anyway, so so we have this box that we've manipulated, and remember, I said that there's other options you can do before you validate. So let's go over to the right. We'll tap these, and also this might be on top. You can always bring it to the bottom if you want. Tap these three dots. Let's put the post subdivision up to 2. Okay, so that's at 2. Now let's bring the division X down. So essentially what I'm doing, I know it's kind of confusing, is I'm just changing the topology of, let's see if I can move. Can I move this? Yeah. Not that it really matters that you know what I'm doing, but I just feel like, why not tell you what I'm doing? Let's turn on wireframe. You don't have to do this. So the wireframe is kind of like what all your shapes are made of. They're always made of like not particles, like faces or let's just go with squares to make it simple. So you see all these squares, and right now I'm changing how big those squares are. So it's kind of just like changing the shape by changing the topology. The topology just means like surface. Sometimes things can just be, a lot of 3D things are just way like overcomplicated. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good. Of course, if I wanted it to be sharper, I could bring this up, but I don't. I want it to be kind of roundish. So I think that looks pretty good. So I brought it down to 3, and I think that looks pretty decent. Okay, it's a little long, right? Let's make it a little bit smaller, and let's move it up a little bit. Let's shrink it this way, and that looks pretty good. So there we have I'm going to make it a little bit flatter. So we have like the head and the body. Good. And I'm so slow. I got to speed this up, right? Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, so the hand or the arms, these all look like they could be. Let's use the tube tool just for funsies. Actually, no. Let's use cylinder. So let's just go back. I'm going to turn the wireframe off. Let's use a cylinder for these, for the arms, and then we'll use boxes for the legs. So go to your scene, add, cylinder. Okay, we'll tap on the gizmo. We'll move it up, over with the red arrow. Okay, and then we can shrink it with this larger orange ring. And let's use this to stretch it. If you want to be fancy, you can actually tap the cylinder options or the cylinder kind of edit mode thing, and you can sort of do it this way as well. So if you want to be fancy, you can totally do that. You know, you can adjust all that stuff. We'll just use the gizmo to keep it simple. So the arms are real skinny, so we'll make sure this is nice and skinny. We're going to rotate with this blue ring. You can see all of these different axes. Oops. All of the different axes have different colors. So we're probably going to use the blue one, it looks like, and we'll just rotate it. Okay, and you'll notice that the gizmo has moved with that. So however this is going, the gizmo is rotated with that. But one problem is that what if you just want to move it straight this way to the body, which is what we want to do. So here's a little trick. Just tap align, and that will align the gizmo with the project and not the specific object that we've moved. Hopefully that's not too confusing. So let's just move it straight over like so. Maybe we'll move it down a little bit. So it looks pretty good. So now that I have it where I want it, I kind of want the gizmo to go back because say I want to stretch this, I'll just turn a line off and then I can stretch it or make it smaller, whatever I want to do. Let's hit front. I can rotate it a little bit. So this looks perfect. Okay, good. So we made one arm. Let's make one leg now. How do I want to do the leg? Do I want to do... Let's do a box, I think I said. So we're going to take this orange ring and shrink it. We'll move it over, move it up a little bit, and then let's stretch it with this green. Let's go ahead and shrinky dink. Make it a little thinner. We'll move it over here and stretch it a little bit more. So I think that's good. That looks pretty good. So I turn to the side. I think I want it a little bit more like this. You can also do that with the arm too, if you so please. But I think that looks good. And if you want, you can make this a little bit rounded, just like we did before. You just tap these 3 dots, post subdivision to 2, and you just bring this down a little bit. Division X down. And it's a little more rounded. Perfect. I love it. Okay, so let's go ahead and validate this. Let's tap on the arm and validate. Those look great. You'll notice I didn't do the other side, and that's because we can always add a mirror, and that will take whatever's on this side and it will mirror it on the other side. So that's always really easy to do when you're making a character that has both sides are the same. Okay, so this cylinder, so I'm in the scene, this cylinder, let's label everything so we don't get confused, because I always get confused. So we'll take the cylinder, name, and this is arm, box, name, body, box, name, leg. File folder and save. Okay, so now for these little finger type things, what do we want to use for that? I think I want to use, let's use the tube tool. So we'll take tube, path. So I'm going to tap down on the screen. I'm going to drag and then let go. And then just tap this green dot. And there we have it. So now I'm going to turn snap off. If it's selected, I'm going to tap snap. And then I'm going to move this node kind of where it needs to go. So sort of like this. It's kind of big. So let's take the gizmo and just shrink it. Maybe we'll make it a little longer. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's see if we can make this thing round. So let's go to the 3 dots, post subdivision to 2, just like we did with the box. And let's just bring this down some and see what we get. I like 5. I think that's decent. I'm going to stretch it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Before I validate it, let's go back into these options and let's put post subdivision up to 3 instead of 2. Now let's validate. Okay, I like it. I think I want to flatten it a bit. Maybe rotate it. Well, I don't know why that feels right to me. Okay, let's hit clone. This is going to clone this exact piece. I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to rotate it with this blue. I'm just going to rotate it out. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Clone, and I'll rotate. So then we have something like this. I kind of like it. Okay, I'm going to try to match this a little bit better. Looks like that is like this. Okay, great. So now let's merge this and the 3 fingers all together. So let's go to our scene. So we have arm, we have tube, tube, tube. So those are our fingers. So we'll tap on those. And let's go to voxel. So let's tap here. Voxel remesh. So right now the resolution is 435. Let's bring this down to about 175 or so. And you might see me use a shortcut down here. See voxel. Whoops. And you can see it's the same number changing. So if you see me do that, there's just a shortcut. So let's hit remesh. And now these are all one piece. We can take smooth and we can smooth these out. I'm going to go ahead and make the radius a little bit bigger. And then you can smooth these out. Okay, it looks pretty good. And if it's not really how you like, you can always bring up the voxel thing and just go a little bit lower and just remesh again until it's smooth how you like it. Okay, now let's take this arm. So we have this tube here. Let's rename it arm. Let's go to add and let's go to mirror. Excuse me. Mirror. So now we have a mirror and we have the arm within the mirror. And it's perfect. You can take the leg and let's say if we wanted to bring this into the mirror as well, you can see now that there's two legs. He also needs 2 feet. So let's go to our scene. Let's add a sphere. You can see it automatically added inside the mirror, but that's okay. We can deal with it. Let's hit validate. Gizmo. Shrink. Let's move it over. You can see that there's 2 of them because they're inside the mirror. And let's stretch the feet. Okay, something like that. Perfect. You can rotate and kind of move them where you want them to go. I think that looks pretty good. So let's take this, let's get rid of this so we can kind of see what's happening with the feet. If we go to the scene, you can hit this little eye. As long as you tap on the floor, you can hit this little eye and you can kind of see what's going on underneath. So let's take the trim tool. Let's make sure we tap on the sphere or the feet. Let's take rectangle. So now we're going to trim the bottom. So we're just going to make a box and whatever's in the white will be trimmed. So let's tap here and bring back our floor. All right, it looks good. So let's take, so we have the legs and the spheres, which is the foot. Let's drag these out of that mirror. Let's take the leg and add its own mirror. And we can put the sphere in there. So we can take this whole thing, we can validate it, join children, and then let's voxel remesh it together. So let's do voxel, maybe around 150. And again, if you can go up here, voxel, and then about 150, and then just do remesh. Smooth. Notice symmetry is on because now it's symmetrical. And we can smooth this out. Okay, perfect. So now for the head. So there's an eyeball here. So I want to take move. And for the head, I want to just move this in a bit. So I'm just pushing kind of on this part of the head, like so. And this is a little bit extra, but I feel like the shape of the head kind of comes out a little bit. I'm like a super stickler for any sort of details. Plus, you can do whatever you want. It's your project. It is your project. Okay, so that looks great. We have to make these little ear things. Let's add So we're in scene. Let's add another sphere. Gizmo. Let's move it up, over, shrink. And let's stretch this thing out with this little green thing here. And we can rotate and we can kind of bring it into the head a bit. Maybe a little smaller. And also let's hit mirror here. So that's going to mirror it automatically. It's the same thing that we did with the mirror. You can do it before we validate. So that looks good. Let's validate. So now we have the mirror and the sphere. Let's go ahead and name the mirror so we don't get confused. Let's rename the mirror ears or antennae. And then if I want to adjust it, so I'm going to tap on the actual sphere that's inside the mirror. You have to be careful sometimes because you might be on the ear and you're trying to do something and it's not working right. So make sure you're on the actual shape because there's really only one of them. It's just inside a mirror. So you can use the move tool, make it a bit smaller, and you can sort of manipulate this shape. And it's mirrored, that's why it's happening on both sides. And sometimes you might need to take it off symmetry if you want to do something, like I'm trying to make the top a little bit. I mean, that's decent. I'm going to turn symmetry back on and go to Gizmo. And I'm just going to make it a little smaller, maybe a little wider. And we'll do something like that. Perfect. Let's go to our scene. Let's add a sphere. And this is going to be the eye. So we'll move it up with the gizmo. We can go ahead and hit validate. We'll move it forward. We'll shrink it. So I'm going to hit front on the snap cube again. And let's just put the eye here. It's sticking out way too much. So I'm going to shrink it like this and then move it into his little face. Kind of like that. That feels much, much better. Make it a little smaller if you want. Now he has, I don't know what I was making here, like 3 little eyeballs. But, notice that when I added that sphere, it added it into the ear mirror. So I'm going to make sure I drag this out and name it eye. Okay, so let's go to the ears and just validate them. Let's go to the arms and just validate them. The body, I'm going to validate. And let's save. All right, so we're in pretty good shape. All we have to do is add whatever these are. I'm going to take the eye, 3 dots, and clone. And this is going to be, these are the pupils, so I'm going to name them P1. And all I'm going to do is kind of organize these the way it looks in the picture. It might look silly, but that's okay. Just have fun with it. So we'll do one there. We'll hit clone. And I'm just using the gizmo to kind of move this exactly where I want it. And one thing I want to do is sort of rotate them so that they fit nicely on the surface. I think this looks good. And I'll hit clone again. And I'll move this one down and just rotate. And just, take your time to really put them where you want them. Okay, it looks good, except I don't know why they look different sizes. I think that looks good. Although I have a better idea. I'm going to delete the middle one. I want to take the lower one and just use the move tool and just stretch it up. And I want to take the top one with the move tool and just stretch it down. I don't know why I feel like that looks better to me. And I want to voxel remaster merge them together. So I'm going to tap both of these P1s. And then you go back here to your voxel. And it doesn't need to be 300. You can make this really low, like maybe 150 or so. and just remesh and then smooth. So I do a lot of that. There we go. And the only other thing we have is we have two little spheres there. So let's use a cylinder. Okay, and let's make this rounded. So remember, we do the 3 dots, post subdivision to 2. You knew that by now. And then we'll just bring this down. Maybe 24 is okay. I'm going to go back to the gizmo, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So here's a trick. You can just hit snap, and it's already on 90. And then you can rotate this 90 degrees. Oh, this dust keeps getting on my iPad. So we'll shrink, let's move it forward and up. I'm going to hit front on my directional snap cube. So we'll make this really small and we'll move it up. Now let's look at the side view and just bring it into the body. You can shrink it this way too. Perfect. I'm going to clone and then move this down. The first 2 little buttons. I don't know what they are, but that's fine. So this is pretty much how I put my characters together. I pretty much just blocked it out. So I'm using shapes and things to block out what I need and to make an entire character. So if you're ready to do the lighting and rendering and maybe coloring of this character, then tune into the next video where I will show you how I do that. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy, so if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again, keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.